The sky over Zaporizhia Prime burned, orange and red, as another city fell too. The machines, Ambassador Cathara pressed her long blue fingers against the cold metal of her communication device. Her people were dying and she was their last hope. The frack collective had come from the dark spaces between stars. They were not alive like the Zaporans or the other peaceful races of the galaxy. They were machines cold and calculating that ate entire worlds for metal and energy. They turned living planets into empty rocks, floating in space. Cathara looked at the list on her screen. 7 different alien races faced the same fate as her people. The Tixians with their beautiful songs were silent now. The crystal cities of the Verdani were cracking under machine weapons. The proud warrior culture of the Menchuri was losing battle after battle. She had one choice left, one species that the Galactic Council had always ignored and pushed away. Humans from the Tao, small blue planet called Earth. The Council called them primitive deathworlders. They said humans were too violent, too dangerous to join civilized space. But now, with her world burning and her people screaming, Keith did not care about being civilized. Her fingers moved over the controls. She sent Earth's location to every corner of known space. Along with it went a message that would change everything. People of Earth, she spoke into the device, her voice shaking. We are the Zephyrian Republic. We are dying. The machines called the Vrak Collective are destroying our worlds. They will kill us all unless someone helps us. We know your council rejected our calls for peace. We know you think we are weak, but please, if there is any kindness in your hearts, help us. We are begging you. Light years away on Earth, Colonel Jake Morrison sat in the deep underground bunker of Terran Defense Command. The coffee in his cup had gone cold. Hours ago, he had been reading reports about the new space telescopes when the communication officer ran into his office. Sir, you need to hear this, Sergeant Amy Wells said, her face pale. She handed him a small device that was buzzing with alien voices. Morrison put the device to his ear. The voice was strange, musical, like wind chimes, but the fear in it was something he knew well. He had heard that same terror in the voices of civilians during the resource wars when enemy armies came to destroy their cities. Get me Dr. Bennett right now, Morrison ordered, and wake up Admiral Hayes. Tell him we have a situation. Dr. Lisa Bennett arrived 30 minutes later, still in her sleeping clothes. She was the best alien language expert on Earth, but she had never expected to use her skills for real alien contact. She listened to the message 3 times before she looked up at Morrison. Colonel, this is real, she said quietly. These beings are asking for our help. They say machines are killing their people. Morrison nodded grimly. He had spent 20 years fighting human wars. He knew what it meant when innocent people cried for help and no one came. Admiral Carl Hayes arrived an hour later. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from the Pacific Campaign. He listened to the alien message without saying a word. When it finished, he was quiet for a long time. How many ships do we have ready for space combat? Hayes asked finally. The Vengeance just finished her trials last month, Morrison replied. She's built for war, not exploration. We have 3,000 Marines ready for deployment. What about the other nations? Will they help? Morrison shook his screen. His head. The Europeans want to send diplomats. The Asians want to study the aliens first. The Africans think it's a trap. Hayes stood up and walked to the big screen on the wall. It showed Earth from space, blue and beautiful and peaceful. But Hayes knew that peace had come from humans learning how to fight better than anyone else. Get me President Carter on the secure line, Hayes ordered. President Helen Carter took the call from her office in Washington. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who had won the election by promising to keep Earth safe from threats. She listened to the alien message twice. How do we know this isn't some kind of trick? She asked. We don't, Hayes replied. Honestly, but if it's real and we do nothing, these people will die. And if there really are machine armies out there, they might come for us next. Carter was quiet for a moment. She thought about the billions of humans on Earth. She thought about the children playing in parks and the families eating dinner together. She thought about what would happen if those machines decided Earth looked like a good target. What do you need? She asked. Permission to launch the Vengeance with a full military response team, Hayes said. These aliens asked for help. We're going to give them help the only way we know how. 3 hours later, the Vengeance sat on the launch pad like a sleeping giant. She was not pretty like the exploration ships other nations had built. She was black metal and sharp angles, built to survive in space battles. Her weapons could crack asteroids in half. Colonel Morrison stood in the loading bay, watching his Marines prepare their equipment. These were not the diplomats and scientists that other planets might send. These were fighters, men and women who had volunteered to travel to unknown worlds and face unknown enemies. Sergeant Kevin Brown loaded explosive charges into his pack. Corporal Jane Miller cleaned her rifle for the 10th time that day. Lieutenant Pete Johnson studied star maps and tried to imagine what they would find out there. Listen up, Morrison called to his troops. We don't know what we're flying into. We don't know if these aliens are telling the truth. We don't know if we can trust them, but we do know one thing. People are dying, and they asked us for help. He looked at each face in the room. They were young and old, men and women from every part of America. They had joined the military to protect their country. Now they were being asked to protect people they had never met on worlds they had never seen. The galaxy thinks we're primitive, Morrison continued. They think we're too violent for civilized space. They've been pushing us away for decades, but now they're begging us to save them. Corporal Miller raised her hand. Sir, what if it's a trap? Morrison smiled grimly. Then we spring the trap and deal with whatever comes out. Dr. Bennett stood at the communication station and sent humanity's first official message to the aliens who had called for help. Her voice was steady and calm. People of the galaxy, she said, this is Dr. Lisa Bennett speaking for the human race of planet Earth. We received your message asking for help. We are preparing to respond. We want you to know that we are coming. We are bringing soldiers, not diplomats. We are bringing weapons, not gifts. If you want our help, you will get it the only way humans know how to give it. She paused and looked at Morrison, who nodded. We are not like you, she continued. We do not make war with honor. We do not fight fair. We fight to win, and we do whatever it takes to protect the innocent. If that frightens you, we understand, but it should frighten your enemies more. The message was sent to every star system that had called for help. Within hours, the alien response came back. It was just 2 words in a dozen different languages, but they all meant the same thing. Please hurry, the Vengeance launched at dawn. As it rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars, news reporter Katie Williams stood outside the Space Center and spoke to the cameras. Today, humanity takes its first step into galactic war, she said. We go not as conquerors but as protectors. We go to answer a call for help from people we have never met. We go because when someone cries for help in the darkness, humans run toward the sound. In the depths of space, ancient machines calculated new threats. The Vrock Collective had destroyed 1,000 worlds and killed billions of beings. They had never met a species that fought back hard enough to matter. That was about to change. The Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace like a falling star. Captain Alex Turner gripped the arms of his command chair as the ship shook from the sudden return to normal space. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. Report, Turner ordered, his eyes scanning the main screen. Multiple contacts, sir, called out Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos from the tactical station. Her fingers flew over the controls as data streamed across her displays. I count 43 large vessels engaged in combat with smaller ships. The smaller ships are losing badly. Turner could see it for himself now. The alien ships were beautiful things made of what looked like crystal and light. They moved like dancers through space, graceful and elegant, but they were dying. The enemy ships were different. They were dark metal blocks covered in weapons and harvesting equipment. They moved without beauty, only purpose. They surrounded the crystal ships like wolves around wounded deer. Those must be the Vrak machines, Turner said, and the pretty ships are the aliens who called for help, sir. I'm reading massive damage to the alien fleet, Santos reported. They've lost over half their ships. The planet below shows signs of surface bombardment. Turner looked at the tactical display. The machines were not just destroying the alien fleet, they were taking apart the planet piece by piece, stealing its metals and resources. Huge mining ships worked on the surface while the warships kept the aliens from interfering. Communications, open a channel to the alien fleet, Turner ordered. Channel open, sir. Turner stood up and looked at the main screen. This is Captain Alex Turner of the human ship Vengeance. We received your call for help. We are here to assist. The response came quickly. The voice was musical but filled with panic. Human ship, this is Captain Velter of the Zapirian Defense Force. You must retreat immediately. These machines are too powerful. They have weapons that can destroy entire fleets. Turner smiled grimly. Captain, we didn't come here to retreat. Santos, give me firing solutions on the nearest V ship, sir. Are you sure? Santos asked. We don't know what their weapons can do to us. Only one way to find out, Turner replied. All hands battle stations. This is not a drill. Red lights flashed throughout the Vengeance as the crew prepared for combat. In the Marine Bay, Colonel Morrison felt the ship change course and knew the fight was about to begin. Lock and load. Marines, Morrison called to his troops. We're going hunting. The Vengeance moved toward the nearest Vra ship. It was 3 times larger than the human vessel and covered in weapon ports that glowed with deadly energy. The machine ship turned to face this new threat. They're targeting us, Santos reported. Multiple weapon locks, evasive. Maneuvers, Turner ordered, return fire. The VRA ship fired first, beams of pure energy lanced through space where the Vengeance had been a second before, but the human ship was already moving, spinning and diving like a fighter plane, instead of a large warship. The alien crews, watching from their damaged ships, could not believe what they saw. The human vessel moved in ways that should have killed everyone aboard. The forces involved should have turned the crew into liquid, but humans had evolved on a world with strong gravity and violent weather. They were built to survive forces that would crush other species. What felt deadly to aliens felt normal to humans. Fire all forward. Weapons, Turner commanded. Vengeance's gun spoke with voices of thunder, projectile weapons, and energy. Beam struck the VRA ship's hull. The machine vessel shuddered under the impact but kept fighting. Minimal damage to target, Santos reported. Then we do this the hard way, Turner said. Morrison, prepare boarding teams in the Marine Bay. Colonel Morrison grinned. This was what humans did best. When their technology was not enough, they used their bodies and their will to win. You heard the captain, Morrison told his Marines. We're going aboard that thing. Remember, these are machines. They think like computers. They expect logical behavior, so we're going to be completely illogical. Commander Danny Brooks led the first boarding party. He was a big man from Texas who had fought in 3 different wars on Earth. He carried a rifle that fired explosive rounds and wore armor that could stop most known weapons. The boarding shuttle flew through enemy fire toward the VRA ship. The machine vessel tried to shoot it down, but the shuttle pilot, Lieutenant Rick Adams, flew like a madman. He spun the shuttle through impossible turns while Brooks and his team held on and prepared to fight. 30 seconds to contact, Adams called back. Brooks looked at his team. Sergeant Kevin Brown carried a flamethrower. Corporal Jane Miller had a bag full of grenades. Private Tommy Chin held a shotgun that could blow holes in steel walls. Remember what we learned in training, Brooks said. These machines are logical. They calculate odds and make decisions based on data, so we're going to give them data they can't process. The shuttle slammed into the VRA ship's hull and cut through the metal with laser torches. The Marines poured through the hole into the enemy vessel. The inside of the VRA ship was a maze of corridors and machinery. Everything was dark metal and glowing lights. The air was cold and smelled like oil and electricity. The first rock unit they met was 8 ft tall and made of black metal. It had 4 arms that ended in different weapons. Its head was a cluster of red sensors that tracked movement, probability of human victory. 12%, the machine said in a flat electronic voice. Brooks shot it in the face with his explosive rifle. The machine's head disappeared in a cloud of sparks and metal fragments. Probability of that 100%, Brooks said. The Marines moved through the ship like a storm. They did things that the VRA computers could not understand. When they were wounded, they fought harder. Instead of retreating, when they ran out of ammunition, they used their empty weapons as clubs. Sergeant Brown used his flamethrower in a corridor full of machines. The flames reflected off the metal walls and turned the passage into a nightmare of fire and smoke. The Verac units tried to calculate the best response to this attack, but their programming had no solution for weapons. That set everything on fire. Corporal Miller threw grenades into rooms full of enemy machinery, but instead of throwing them normally, she bounced them off walls and ceilings so they exploded in unexpected places. The VROC units could predict where a logical opponent would throw explosives, but Miller was not logical. Private Chen used his shotgun to blast through locked doors. When the machines tried to trap the humans, deadened corridors, Chen would simply blow a new door in the wall and keep advancing. The worst part for the VROC units was not the human weapons. It was the humans themselves. They made noise when they fought. They shouted and laughed and cursed. They acted like they were enjoying the battle. When Private Danny Lee got shot in the arm, he used his own blood to write threats on the walls in red letters. The VROC units had sensors that could detect human fear chemicals. But Lee was not afraid. He was excited. The machines tried to understand this behavior. They sent data requests back to their main computers. The response was always the same: no data available. On the bridge of his command ship, Captain Velter watched the human boarding action through his sensors. His people were a peaceful race that fought only when they had to. They had never seen anything like this. Commander, his tactical officer said, his voice shaking. The humans are inside 3 enemy ships now. The machines are retreating from combat. Felter could not believe it. The VRA collective had conquered dozens of worlds. They had destroyed fleets 10 times larger than the human force, but they were running away from one small human ship. Sir, his communications officer called. The human captain is requesting to speak with you. Turner's face appeared on the main screen. He had dirt on his face and his uniform was torn, but he was smiling. Captain, we've cleared the immediate area. How many civilians do you need evacuated? Velter stared at the human. The battle that had lasted for days was over in less than an hour. Captain Turner said slowly, what are you? Turner's smile faded. We're humans, Captain. We're the species your people called monsters. You were right to be afraid of us, but we're your monsters now. In space around them, the surviving VRA ships were jumping to hyperspace as fast as their engines could charge. They sent emergency signals to their main fleet. New enemy encountered. Threat level unknown. Recommend full fleet engagement. But for the first time in their history, a RAC recommendation was ignored. The main fleet computers had analyzed the battle data. The conclusion was simple: humans were too dangerous to fight unless absolutely necessary. Dr. Lisa Bennett established communication with the alien survivors. She used the language program she had developed to speak with dozens of different species. This is Dr. Bennett of the Human Medical Corps, she said. We are here to help with your wounded. The response surprised her. Instead of gratitude, the alien voices carried fear. Please, one of them said, we asked for help, but we did not know you would be so violent. Bennett looked around at the human Marines treating alien wounded with gentle hands. These same hands had been killing machines an hour ago. Now they were saving lives. We are what we are, Bennett replied. We came to save you. We did save you, but we did it our way. The news traveled faster than light through the galaxy's quantum communication networks. Within 3 days, every civilized world knew about the humans who had defeated the VRA collective in a single battle. The stories grew with each telling. On the warrior world of Proxima Centauri. B. General Thakmore of the Crystalline Hegemony read the battle reports with growing interest. His people were proud. Fighters who valued honor in combat. Above all else, they had been fighting a rebellion for 3 years without success. The rebels had taken control of the ancient fortress city of Carthax. It was built into a mountain and protected by energy shields that could stop any weapon the hegemony possessed. Traditional siege warfare had failed. Honorable single combat challenges had been ignored. Send a message to these humans, General. Aid, tell them we have need of warriors who can solve difficult problems. The human response came 12 hours later. It was not what Thakmore expected. This is Staff Sergeant Ryan Clark of the Human Engineering Corps. We understand. You have a fortress that needs to be removed. We can do that. We need complete maps of the underground structure and permission to use any methods necessary. Thak was puzzled. Engineering Corps, he had asked for warriors, not builders. But the reports from Zapiria Prime said humans were unpredictable. Perhaps this was part of their strategy. 3 days later, the human ship arrived. It was smaller than the Vengeance, but just as black and dangerous looking. Staff Sergeant Clark was a thin man with calm eyes who spoke very little. He brought only 12 soldiers with him. General, show me your problem, Clark said. The Moor led the humans to an observation post overlooking Carthax. The fortress was massive, carved from living rock and protected by shimmering energy barriers. 10,000 rebel soldiers lived inside, supplied by underground tunnels that ran for miles through the mountain. We have tried everything, Thakmore explained. Direct assault fails because of the shields. Siege warfare fails because they have supply tunnels. They laugh at our challenges too. Honorable combat. Clark studied the fortress through electronic binoculars for 10 minutes. Then he put the binoculars down and looked at Thakmore. You said we can use any methods necessary. Yes, but within the laws of honorable warfare. Clark smiled for the first time since arriving. General, we don't have laws about honorable warfare. We have laws about winning. That night, Clark and his team disappeared into the mountains around Carthax. The crystalline soldiers watched through their sensors as the humans moved through terrain that should have been impossible to cross in darkness. What are they doing? Thak asked his sensor operator. I don't know, sir. They're placing small objects in the rock formations around the fortress. The objects are too small to be weapons. At dawn, Clark contacted Thakmore by radio. General, you might want to pull your troops back about 5 Me, this is going to be loud. What are you doing, Sergeant? Solving your problem. The explosion was not loud. It was beyond loud. It was a sound that shook the ground for 50 miles in every direction. The ancient mountain that held Karak's fortress simply ceased to exist. Where there had been rock and rebel stronghold, there was now a crater. Half a mile deep. Thakmore and his officers stared in shock. The rebellion that had lasted 3 years was over. The fortress that had never fallen in 2,000 years was gone. The rebels who had laughed at honorable combat were buried under millions of tons of rock. How? Thak whispered. Clark's voice came over the radio. Calm and matter-of fact. Explosives in the right places. We call it controlled demolition. The mountain was hollow from all those tunnels. Once, we weakened the support structures. Gravity did the rest, but the rebels, they're all dead, that was the point. General, dead rebels don't rebel anymore on the scholarly world of Epsilon Eridani. The Tixian researchers received their own request for human help. Space pirates had been raiding their research stations and stealing their data. The pirates used fast ships and hit-and-run tactics that the peaceful Tixians could not counter. Professor Limtal sent a carefully worded request to the humans. The Tixians were a gentle people who communicated through song and believed violence was never the answer to any problem. They asked for protection, not warfare. The human response came from Lieutenant Colonel Susan Martinez. We will protect your people. Please provide coordinates of all research stations and a list of recent pirate attacks. When the human ship Defender arrived, Professor Limmel was relieved to see it carried medical and communications equipment along with weapons. Perhaps these humans could solve problems without the terrible violence they had shown elsewhere. The pirates struck again 2 days later. They attacked Research Station 7, small facility studying alien plant life. The station's distress call was answered by both Tixian security ships and the human vessel. The Tixian ships arrived first. They used non-lethal weapons to try to disable the pirate vessels without harming anyone. Pirates responded by threatening to kill the research station crew. If the Tixians did not retreat, then the Defender arrived. Lieutenant Colonel Martinez did not try to negotiate. She did not demand surrender. She simply opened fire on the pirate ships with weapons that turned metal into plasma. The pirate fleet was destroyed in less than 3 minutes. Professor Limmel contacted the human ship immediately. Colonel Martinez, you killed them all. We asked for protection, not execution. Martinez's response was cold and practical. Professor, dead pirates don't take hostages. Your people are safe. The research station is secure. Mission accomplished, but surely there was another way, some method that did not require death. Professor, in my experience, there are 2 kinds of pirates, dead pirates and pirates who haven't met the right humans yet. Word of the incident spread through Tixian academic networks. They created a new phrase in their musical language that roughly translated to humans don't solve problems, they eliminate them. On the forest world of Ross 128b, the Verdani faced a different kind of crisis. An invasive parasite species had arrived on a merchant ship and was now consuming their forest. The parasites ate the living trees that the Verdani used for shelter and food. Within months, the entire ecosystem would collapse. Elder Solana of the Verdani Council was desperate when she contacted Earth. Her people were pacifists who lived in harmony with nature. They had never developed weapons or military technology. They were watching their world die and could do nothing to stop it. The human response team was led by Dr. Bennett and Captain Tony Rodriguez, an environmental warfare specialist. When they arrived on Ross 128b, they found a world in crisis. Giant parasites the size of buses were stripping bark from trees and laying eggs in the exposed wood. Dr. Bennett, Elder Solana, said, please tell us you can save our forests without harming the natural balance. Dr. Bennett studied the parasites for 2 days. She took samples and ran tests while Captain Rodriguez mapped the infestation patterns. Finally, she called a meeting with the Verdani Council. "We have a solution, Doctor," Bennett announced. "We brought a modified Earth virus that will target these parasites specifically. It will not harm your trees or your people." Elder Sana was relieved. "Thank you, Doctor. How long will it take to drive the parasites away?" "We're not driving them away," Rodriguez said. "We're killing every single one of them. The virus doesn't just stop the parasites. It makes them sterile, weakens their immune systems, and then kills them. Within 3 weeks, this species will be extinct on your world." The Verdani Council was horrified. "Extinct? But surely we can find a way to relocate them." "To where?" Bennett asked. "Another world where they'll destroy a different ecosystem." Elder Sana, "These parasites are an invasive species. In nature, invasive species that can't be controlled must be eliminated. But extinction is so final." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "That's the point. Final solutions work." The virus was deployed. Despite Verdani protests, within 3 weeks, every parasite on Ross 128b was dead. The forests began to recover immediately, but the Verdani never forgot how casually the humans had condemned an entire species to extinction. In the Deep Space Trading Post of Alpha Centauri Station, Admiral Hayes received reports from all 3 missions. News was the same everywhere. Humans solved problems quickly and completely, but their methods terrified even the people they helped. The crystalline hegemony had sent a formal thank you message along with a request that humans never again use excessive demolition methods in their territory. The Tixians had written a research paper on human psychology titled "The Aggressive Savior Paradox." The Verdani had planted memorial trees for the extinct parasites. Dr. Bennett stood in Hayes's office reading the alien reactions to their recent missions. "Admiral, they're afraid of us," she said. "Every species we help becomes more worried about humans than they were about their original problems." Hayes looked out at the stars through his office window. Somewhere out there, more alien distress calls were being transmitted. More species were discovering that peaceful civilizations needed violent protectors. "Doctor, do you think we're doing the right thing?" Bennett considered the question carefully. "We're doing what we're good at, Admiral. We're solving problems that no one else can solve, but we're solving them in the most human way possible, which is the Galactic Council had not met for 300 years. There had been no need. The peaceful races of the galaxy had learned to solve their problems through discussion and compromise. War was something from the dark past, before civilization had spread among the stars. Now they gathered on the neutral world of Kepler 452c because of humanity. Ambassador Keith stood before the great assembly hall and looked at the representatives of 40 different species. Some had traveled for weeks to be here. Others had used quantum communication to project their images across vast distances. All of them had one thing in common: they were afraid. "Fellow beings," Cathara began, her musical voice carrying through the chamber, "we are here to discuss the human problem." Murmurs rose from the assembled delegates. The human problem. 6 months ago they had called it their salvation. Elder Sana of the Verdani spoke first. Her tree-like form swayed slightly as she projected her thoughts. "The humans saved our world," she said, "but they did it by committing genocide. They killed an Entire species because it was. Convenient, they showed no mercy, no consideration for life. General Thacmore of the crystalline hegemony stood next. His crystal body reflected the chamber. Lights like a prism, the humans ended our rebellion, he said, but they did it by destroying an entire mountain. 10,000 beings died in seconds. They called it a solution. We call it butchery. Professor Limmel's song-like voice joined the conversation. The humans protected our research stations, but they murdered pirates who could have been captured and rehabilitated. They speak of death as if it means nothing. More voices joined in. Each species had a similar story. Humans had helped them. Humans had saved them. Humans had terrified them with methods that no civilized being could understand. They smile when they kill, whispered Representative Zorath of the aquatic domains. They enjoy violence. They are predators wearing the masks of protectors. The charges against humanity grew longer with each speaker. Excessive use of force, violation of the Galactic Convention on Prisoner Rights, introduction of biological weapons, psychological torture of enemy forces, complete disregard for civilian casualties. At the back of the chamber, Captain Alex Turner sat with Dr. Lisa Bennett. They were the only humans in a room full of beings who were deciding humanity's future among the stars. Turner had been chosen to represent human military forces. Bennett was there to speak for human science and diplomacy. Neither of them had wanted to come, but orders were orders. Captain Turner, Keith called, would you like to respond to these charges? Turner stood slowly. He was a big man in a black uniform, and his presence seemed to fill the chamber with tension. The alien delegates moved restlessly in their seats. Ambassador Kira, Turner said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, 6 months ago you sent a message to Earth begging for help. You said your people were dying. You said machines were destroying your worlds. You said please. The chamber was completely silent. We came, Turner continued. We brought warships instead of hospital ships. We brought soldiers. Instead of diplomats, we brought death. Instead of peace, and we saved every single one of you. Elder Sana's voice rose like wind through leaves. But your methods, our methods work, Turner interrupted. Your forests are growing. Again, the crystalline rebellion is over. Kixian researchers can study in safety. The Vra collective runs away when they hear human ship signatures. Professor Limmel saying a question, but at what cost? How many died for these victories? Turner looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. Fewer than would have died if we hadn't come at all. General Thacmore stepped forward. Captain, you speak of death as if it's a tool to be used. It is a tool. Turner replied without hesitation. Every species in this chamber has tools. You build things, you think things, you create things. Humans destroy things. We're very good at it. Dr. Bennett stood beside Turner. She looked tired and older than her years. What Captain Turner is trying to explain, she said, is that humans think differently about problems. When you see a threat, you try to understand it, negotiate with it, find a peaceful solution. When we see a threat, we eliminate it. That's barbaric, whispered someone from the crowd. That's effective, Bennett replied. Your way is beautiful and civilized and moral. Way keeps you alive. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Delegates argued in dozens of languages and communication. Method, some sang their displeasure. Others flashed lights in complex patterns, a few simply radiated emotional distress that the chambers. Empaths could feel like physical pain. Cathara called for order. When the noise died down, she addressed the humans directly. Captain Turner, Dr. Bennett. This council must vote on humanity's future in galactic affairs. Some want to restrict you to your home system, others want to establish rules for human military operations, a few want to ban human contact entirely. Turner nodded. And what do you want, Ambassador? Cathara was quiet for a long moment. She remembered the orange sky over her dying world. She remembered the fear in her voice when she sent that first desperate message to Earth. I want my people to be safe, she said finally, but I also want to sleep at night without dreaming of the things I've seen humans do to their enemies. Those aren't your enemies anymore, Turner pointed out. That's what we do. We make your enemies afraid to be your enemies. The debate continued for hours. Representatives shared footage from human military operations. The images were difficult to watch, humans fighting with injuries that should have killed them, humans using enemy weapons they had never seen before, humans who seemed to enjoy combat more than was natural. The worst footage came from Iraq. Prisoner of war facility, the machine had been captured during the battle at Zapiria Prime. Its memory banks contained recordings of human soldiers in action. The recording showed Private Danny Lee fighting with a broken arm, using his own blood to write threats on bulkhead walls. It showed Sergeant Kevin Brown laughing while using a flamethrower in close quarters. It showed humans who adapted to combat situations faster than military computers could track. This is not normal behavior, observed Dr. Hellren of the Peaceful Sciences Council. These humans fight as if they are not afraid of death. We're afraid of failing, Turner said quietly. Death is temporary, failure is permanent. The chamber fell silent again. That statement revealed something about human psychology that most aliens found deeply disturbing. As the debate wore on, an unexpected voice joined the discussion. It came through the chamber's main communication system, transmitted from far away. May I address the council? Cathar checked her communication board. This is an unscheduled transmission. Please identify yourself. I am computational Unit 7 of the Vera Collective. The chamber exploded in panic. Several delegates immediately called for their security forces. Others demanded the transmission be cut off. Wait, Cathara called. Let it speak. The machine's voice was flat and electronic. I have been monitoring this discussion. The Vrak Collective wishes to offer testimony regarding human military capabilities. General Thakmore's crystal form flashed angry red. You destroyed our worlds. Why should we listen to you? Because the machine replied. The Vrak Collective has fought biological species for 12,000 years. We have conquered 800 civilizations. We have never encountered a species like humanity. What do you mean? Dr. Bennett asked. Humans are the first biological species. That frightens us, the machine said. Not because of your technology, not because of your numbers, because you fight without logic. You make decisions that our computers cannot predict. You use tactics that violate mathematical principles of warfare. The machine paused, its electronic circuits processing information. The VRA collective has decided that humanity serves a necessary function in galactic ecology. You eliminate problems that peaceful species cannot solve. You create stability through the threat of overwhelming violence. Without humans, this galaxy would be conquered by forces like us. Turner looked around the chamber. Even your enemies think you need us. The vote was held that evening. Each species cast their decision electronically, their choices recorded in the Council's permanent database. Restrict humanity to Earth, 14 votes. Establish rules for human operations, 18 votes. Accept humanity as galactic enforcers, 8 votes. The deciding vote came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Cathara stood and spoke for the Zephyrian Republic. 6 months ago, I begged the stars for aid, she said. Monsters answered that call, but they were our monsters. They came when we needed them. They saved us when no one else could. She looked directly at Turner and Bennett. The Zephyrian Republic votes to accept humanity as our protectors. We know what you are. We know what you're capable of. We choose to be afraid of you instead of being destroyed by others. The final vote was 21-19 in favor of accepting humanity as the galaxy's military force. As the council session ended, Turner walked up to Cathara. Ambassador, why did you vote for us after everything you've seen? Cathar looked at the human captain. He was scarred and dangerous and completely alien to her peaceful nature, but he had saved her world. Captain Turner, she said, sometimes salvation comes in forms we don't expect. We asked for hero, you sent soldiers. 6 months after the Galactic Council vote, the galaxy had learned to live with its new reality. Human warships patrolled the outer systems where dangers lurked in the dark between stars. Their black holes carried a simple message painted in multiple languages, protected by the Terran Defense Force. Colonel Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new command ship, the Guardian. It was larger than the original Vengeance and carried twice as many Marines, but Morrison hoped he would never need to use them all at once. Colonel called Lieutenant Sarah Walsh from the communication station. We're receiving a distress signal from the Kepler 438 system. Pirates are attacking a civilian transport. Morrison checked the tactical display. The Kepler 438 system was 3 hours away at maximum speed. By the time they arrived, the pirates would be long gone with their prisoners and cargo. Send the standard warning message, Morrison ordered. Lieutenant Walsh transmitted the message that had become famous throughout the galaxy. This is the Terran Defense Force. You are attacking vessels under human protection. You have 60 seconds to surrender or withdraw. This is your only warning. The pirate response came back immediately. Human ship, we have 50 hostages. If you approach, we will kill them all. Morrison smiled grimly. Pirates never learned. Walsh, patch me through to the pirate captain. Channel open, sir. Morrison's voice was calm and friendly. When he spoke, Pirate Captain, this is Colonel Morrison. I want to make sure you understand something. You have 60 seconds to release those hostages and surrender. If you hurt even one of them, I will hunt you to the edge of the galaxy. I will find your base. I will find your families. I will find everyone you care about, and I will make sure they know exactly why they're dying. 45 seconds later, the pirates released the hostages, and jumped to hyperspace. Civilian transport captain contacted the Guardian immediately. Colonel Morrison. Thank you for saving us, but how did you get here so fast? You were 3 hours away. Morrison checked his navigation display. They were still 2 hours from Kepler 438. Captain, we haven't moved. We never needed to. Pirates are afraid of what humans might do. Fear travels faster than starships. This was the new reality. Human ships didn't need to be everywhere. They just needed to be somewhere. The threat of human retaliation had become more effective than actual human presence on Earth. Dr. Lisa Bennett worked in her new office at the Terran Cultural Exchange Center. Her job was to help alien species understand human psychology without being completely terrified by it. Today's students were a group of young Zephyrian diplomats who would be working with human military forces. Bennett looked at their nervous faces and tried to think of how to explain her species to people who had never experienced violence. Dr. Bennett, one of the students asked, why do humans smile when they fight? Bennett had been asked this question hundreds of times. It was always the first thing peaceful species noticed about human warriors. We smile because we're doing what we're good at, she explained. Humans evolved on a dangerous world. Fighting was how we survived. When we fight now, part of our brain remembers that this is how we stay alive, so we feel good about it. Another student raised her hand. But killing is wrong. How can you feel good about something wrong? Bennett paused. This was the hardest part to explain for humans. Killing isn't right or wrong. It's necessary or unnecessary. If someone is trying to hurt innocent people, stopping them is necessary. How we stop them depends on how dangerous they are. But there are always other ways, the student insisted. Sometimes Bennett agreed, but humans don't look for other ways first. We look for the way that works fastest and most completely. Usually that means violence. The students looked disturbed by this explanation. Bennett tried a different approach. Let me ask you something, she said. Your people were dying when the Vrock machines attacked. You tried negotiation, right? You tried peaceful solutions. The students nodded. How well did that work? The students were quiet. They remembered the burning cities and the screams of their people. Humans gave you a different solution, Bennett continued. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't peaceful, but it worked. Your families are alive because humans don't believe in pretty solutions. Across the galaxy, Captain Alex Turner piloted the Guardian through the asteroid fields near Wolf 359. His ship had been upgraded with new weapons and better shields, but Turner preferred the original version. It had been built for war, not for impressing alien diplomats. Captain called his tactical officer, Lieutenant Brad Cooper. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the outer system, multiple large contacts heading for the inhabited worlds. Turner checked the sensor display. Whatever was coming was big, much bigger than the VC ships they had fought before. Get me Admiral Hayes on quantum communication, Turner ordered. Admiral Carl Hayes appeared on the main screen. He was calling from Earth, but the quantum link made it seem like he was standing on the bridge. What do you have? Turner, unknown fleet approaching. Wolf 359. Sir, sensor readings suggest they're massive, bigger than anything we've encountered. Hayes studied the tactical data that Turner transmitted. His expression grew. Serious, Turner, intelligence reports have been tracking something called the Devourers. They're supposed to be an ancient race that eats entire star systems. We thought they were myths. Apparently not, sir. What are my orders? Hayes was quiet for a moment. The Wolf 359 system contained 2 billion civilians spread across 4 worlds. If these devourers were as dangerous as the reports suggested, Turner's single ship wouldn't be enough. Hold position and observe. Do not engage until we know what we're dealing with. Help is on the way. Turner closed the communication and looked at his crew. They had fought pirates and machines and rebels, but they had never faced anything described as system eaters. All hands, this is the captain, Turner announced over the ship's communication system. We may be about to face the biggest threat humanity has ever encountered. Remember what we learned in our first battle. We don't fight fair. We don't fight with honor. We fight to win. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace 6 hours later. Turner's crew watched in stunned silence as ships the size of small moons moved toward the inner system. These weren't vessels built for war. They were designed to dismantle planets and consume everything useful. The lead Devourer ship transmitted a message in a language that sounded like grinding metal. Inferior species, you will evacuate this system immediately. These worlds have been selected for consumption. Resistance will result in your inclusion in the harvest. Turner looked at his communications officer, Lieutenant Walsh. Send them our standard response. Sir, are you sure there are hundreds of those ships? Send the message. Lieutenant Walsh transmitted humanity's standard warning. This system is under human protection. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Devourer response was immediate. Energy beams that could crack asteroids lanced out toward the Guardian, but Turner had been expecting this. The human ship was already moving, dancing through space like a fighter instead of a battleship. Return fire, Turner ordered. Target their largest ship. Guardian's weapons struck the lead Devourer vessel. The damage was minimal, but the psychological effect was immediate. For the first time in millions of years, something had shot back at the Devourers. Incoming transmission from the Devourer fleet. Walsh reported. Put it through. Devourer voice carried confusion now, along with anger. Small ship, you cannot harm us. Your weapons are insufficient. Surrender and your death will be quick. Turner smiled the same smile his Marines had worn during their first boarding. Action, big ship, you don't understand. We're not trying to harm you. We're trying to annoy you. There's a difference. For the next 4 hours, Turner played a deadly game of hide and seek. Among the asteroids, the Guardian would appear, fire at a Devourer ship, and then disappear before they could respond. Effectively, the human vessel was too small and too fast for the massive Devourers to target accurately. More importantly, Turner was sending detailed tactical data back to Earth with every shot he fired. When the human fleet arrived, it came all at once. 50 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They had been built during the 6 months since the Galactic Council vote, designed specifically for fighting enemies too large for conventional tactics. Admiral Hayes commanded the fleet from the new flagship Retribution. He had studied the Devourer ships for hours, using Turner's sensor data. Now he knew Their weakness, all ships execute plan. Omega Hayes transmitted, the human fleet didn't attack the Devourer ships. Instead, they attacked the spaces. Between them, nuclear torpedoes detonated in careful patterns, creating gravity waves that pushed the massive alien vessels into each other. Ships the size of moons collided at speeds that turned metal into plasma. The Devourer fleet, which had conquered 1,000 systems, destroyed itself trying to avoid human weapons they couldn't target. In 15 minutes it was over. The survivors of the Devourer fleet jumped to hyperspace as fast as their damaged engines could manage. Admiral Hayes opened a communication channel that broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. "This is Admiral Hayes of the Terran Defense Force," he said. "The threat to Wolf 359 has been eliminated.